Hello and welcome everybody to another puzzle challenge video with chessuniversity.com. This is Ryan Murphy presenting today's puzzle, and since it's the beginning of a new week, we're back to our beginner level puzzles. So these should be difficulty level set at, I would say, for players under 1,000. And this is a pattern we've seen already in one of our earlier beginner level puzzles. I think very nearly at the start of our puzzle challenge series. But it's an important tactical theme to know, and of course, patterns repeat themselves. So, the game this comes from is the game Kira against Cheung, played on chess.com. It was a blitz game, and it is white to play and win. This was a position that wasn't actually reached. It was after a possible move for black on their 10th move, which would have led to a winning shot by white right here. So I'm just going to briefly show the opening of this game and how it developed, and then I'll let you guys solve it, and you can post your answers on chessuniversity.com if you would like credit for solving the puzzle. You can get rewards points on your account. I'll put a link in the description for the page on our website where you can visit to make that comment. So without any further ado, let's start at the beginning here. This game began as d4, knight f6, bishop g5, where white is usually intending to exchange bishop for knight, sometimes doubling black's pawns, usually with the idea of trying to fight for the center with e4. So d5 is played, knight d2, c5, attacking the center. That's a very logical move, especially now that the white queen has been blocked from its defense of the d4 pawn. So now white takes the opportunity to take on f6, gf6, taking towards the center, and dc5. Momentarily, white is up a pawn, though of course, usually this pawn is not going to stick around very long on c5. It's very easy to attack. Black plays the move e6, which is pretty logical, although maybe a more energetic way of doing the same thing would have just been to go e5. There are, of course, other ways to play this position. You can play knight a6 and try to recapture with the knight. You can go queen a5, although usually this method's a little bit slow, and take with the queen, but it's certainly at least an option to consider. And of course, moving the e-pawn to open up the bishop is the other logical way. So that's why black went with e6. Now white played e4, which is a nice move, using the knight on d2, trying to chip away at the black center. But one downside to opening the position potentially is that black does have two bishops, so the more open the position becomes, the stronger the bishops will be. But in general, white needs to get their pieces out, so moving the e-pawn was definitely called for in this position. Okay, so bishop takes c5, and now queen h5 was played, which is a fun move, putting some pressure along the diagonal leading to black's king, also indirectly attacking the bishop on c5, so that pawn takes pawn is not really a good idea. That would hang a piece. So a nice tactical move, just kind of controlling tons of territory, and it's very difficult to get rid of this queen because there's no knight on f6. Also, if black were to castle for some reason, the queen would be very well placed to help with an attack. Okay, so the move queen b6 was played here. And now after long castles, bishop takes f2, which is exceptionally greedy. But, I mean, it's a tough position, I guess, for black anyway, just because their king is stuck in the center, based on the fact that they don't really want to castle kingside now. And castling queenside, I wouldn't say makes them much safer. But still, more principled would have been to try to go knight c6. And maybe here you can try to tempt white into being the one with greedy moves. For example, it looks now like this pawn on d5 is under attack a lot, but this is not something that white wants to be grabbing. Bishop e6, all of a sudden black would at least have all their pieces out, and they'd be able to get some counterplay with many pieces starting to aim at white's king. So this is an example of, again, where greed can backfire if you're helping your opponent develop their pieces with tempo. So anyway, bishop takes f2 was tried, and after ed, bishop takes g1, rook takes g1 was played. Now here, we should say that bishop takes g1 is not a good move, right? Like, this piece is developed. It's been moved already twice to get to where it is. This knight's not developed, it's invested. There's an investment of 0 tempi in this knight, right? So trading a piece that's moved multiple times for a piece that hasn't developed yet at all, you're just sort of trading away tons of quality in terms of time. And unless you're winning something substantial when you do something like this, it's usually bad. So in this case, maybe black thought, oh, I'm taking here, and they can't take back because queen takes g1 and they lose their rook. But unfortunately, that would lead to our critical position where there's a tactic for white. So it's possible that at this moment when black decided to take on g1, they just overlooked the fact that rook takes g1 was possible. That's certainly an option. That would be my guess, actually. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense to take the knight. But that being the case, the next question is, what should black have done here? All right. So if not bishop takes g1, they got to find a different move. It's gonna be not so much fun for black to take the pawn on d5, but they might have to bite the bullet and just do that. Another possibility is to go bishop e3 and pin this knight. The one nice thing I can say about bishop on f2 is at least it controls the e1 square, so that after a move like ed5, there isn't an immediate rook e1 check. So that is actually something nice for black. But this is, I think, what black needs to do. Probably put the bishop on e6, knight on c6, and I guess try to castle along. And yeah, just hope to defend a definitely worse position because of the really weak pawns. But anyway, after bishop g1, rook g1, black did not take on g1 with the queen, as I hope I remember to say at the beginning. They played the move knight a6, and they were in huge trouble anyway. And this could have made it a whole separate puzzle, but there's a very beautiful move here, which I guess if you guys want, you can pause the video now, and then I'll show it before we end the video. But yeah, go ahead and pause your video if you want to try to find this one. This is definitely not a beginner level tactic. Okay, so the move is bishop d5 check. And there's a couple of ways you could think about dealing with this. The most logical one is what happens if queen takes bishop, right? That's the most forcing move, or most obvious one. And now the stunning move, which just like wins in all cases, is knight e4. The immediate threat's pretty easy to spot, hopefully. Knight to d6 would be a fork. But of course the queen can move, right? And so can the king to avoid this fork. There just happen to be no good moves for the king. So, for example, if the king comes up, then it's d6 check with the discovery along the 5th. So that one's clear. If the king moves on to the d file, that's also pretty obvious. Then you just take with discover check, and once again, hitting the queen. So we're quickly eliminating king moves as possibilities for black to escape this attack. If they go here, I think you can just start with queen h6 check. And now it's tough because if they go back to e8, we already know that there's knight d6. And if they go here, at minimum, there's queen takes f6 and then take this rook, although there's probably also a checkmate, depending on where the king goes. So that basically eliminates all the king moves from being options for black, right? Let's back up. After queen takes b5 and knight e4, now we have to look at, different queen moves. Well, if the queen goes back to b6, which is where it was the moment ago, then basically the attack after knight takes f6 is crushing. That's the problem. And no matter where the king goes, really, if king f8, we're probably going to play queen h6 again. And if king goes to the d file, we're going to be opening the d file. And this is, you don't have to really calculate any further to realize that this is winning. When the king is here, both rooks are undeveloped. This bishop's undeveloped. This knight is terrible. All of white's pieces are able to get through the center to attack. Like, you don't need to see any further to know that black is just dead. So if you wanted, you could look further and find checkmates. So, yeah, basically every other move is similar. Every other queen move, I should say, is similar. There's going to be a knight takes f6, and then a d takes e6 opening of the position, and black's king's just going to get crushed. So, yeah, bishop e5 was a nice resource that could happen in the game after the move knight a6, though the move played in the game was d e6, and white was crushing anyway, so it's not a huge difference. This is still a very, very good position for white. Anyway, back to our key moment. Here it's white to play and win. Hope you guys can solve it. Make sure you post on the official webpage where the puzzle has been put up, and check back in 24 hours to see if you got the right answer. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see everybody tomorrow.